Welcome to the world of Sci-Fi Stories, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe the channel. Enjoy the listening. An alien woman's heartfelt request. I want you to make me a mother. A forbidden desire. The sound of the ship's engines hummed softly in the background as Tyria, an alien woman from a distant star system, sat in the quiet cabin. Her heart raced as she gazed at the planet below. Earth, the planet of humanity, the planet of desire, of strength, of hope, but most importantly, the planet where her dream had led her. Tyria had never been a typical alien. She wasn't driven by conquest or the desire for power like many of her kind. No, her dream was simpler, though perhaps even more profound. Motherhood. Her species had long since abandoned such simple joys, trapped in a sterile, emotionless existence. But Tyria wanted more. She wanted to experience love, life, and the miracle of birth, the things that humans often took for granted. Tyria had heard of the humans' ability to form deep emotional bonds. She had studied their culture, their ways, and their family structures. It was something she had always longed for. So when the opportunity arose, she had seized it. She had come to Earth determined to find someone who could help her fulfill her dream. The human she had chosen was not a hero, not a man of great power or fame, but someone who embodied everything she desired. His name was Daniel, an ordinary man, perhaps in his mid-30s, with dark hair and a quiet demeanor, but it was his kindness, his gentle nature, and the way he interacted with the world that had drawn her to him. He had no idea what she had come for, and that was the way Tyria wanted it. She didn't want to be treated like an outsider or a curiosity. She wanted to be treated as a woman, as someone who had a simple request. She finally mustered the courage to approach him. It was a quiet evening when she found him alone, walking through a park near the outskirts of the city. The sun had set, leaving behind a soft twilight glow. The air was cool, and the stars had begun to twinkle in the sky. Tyria stood still, watching him as he approached a bench, lost in his own thoughts. "Excuse me, Daniel," she called out softly. Her voice was smooth yet tinged with a hint of vulnerability. He turned to look at her, his brown eyes meeting her golden ones. There was a brief moment of confusion before he smiled politely, recognizing her. "Oh, hi, I didn't expect to see you out here. What's on your mind?" Tyria felt a nervous flutter in her chest. This wasn't going to be easy, but she had come too far to turn back now. Taking a deep breath, she walked closer to him, standing just a few feet away. She could see the warmth in his eyes, the curiosity that had led him to wonder what brought her to Earth. I need to tell you something," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "Something very personal, something I've never shared with anyone before." Daniel's expression softened. He motioned to the bench beside him. "Sit down, whatever it is you can tell me." Tyria hesitated for a moment, then nodded. She sat beside him, keeping a small distance. At first, the weight of what she was about to ask was not lost on her. She had spent so long planning this moment, but now that it was here, she wasn't sure how he would react. I want to be a mother," she said quietly, her voice barely a whisper in the cool evening air. "I've never had the chance to experience that. My people don't have families the way humans do. I studied you, Daniel, your kind, the way you bond, the way you love. It's something I've always yearned for." Daniel listened intently, his expression shifting from confusion to curiosity, and then something else, sympathy maybe, or understanding. "I don't want to get pregnant," she continued, now turning to face him more directly, her voice firmer. "By you, I don't want a life of coldness anymore. I want to know what it feels like to have a child, to care for someone the way humans do to experience the joy of motherhood." There was a long pause. Tyria could feel her heart pounding in her chest as she waited for him to respond. She wasn't sure what she expected, but she knew this request was extraordinary, even by human standards. Finally, Daniel spoke, his voice quiet but calm. I don't know what to say." Tyria felt the sting of disappointment, but she forced herself to remain composed. "You don't have to say anything. Just think about it, please." Her voice cracked slightly as she finished. "I'm asking you to help me, Daniel. It's the one thing I've ever wanted." For a long moment, the only sound was the rustling of leaves in the breeze. Tyria's gaze never left him, her golden eyes searching for any sign of understanding the unspoken bond. Daniel sat in silence, processing her words. The world around them seemed to pause, the city noises fading into a background hum as his mind grappled with the request Teria had just made. He was taken aback. Certainly the idea of helping an alien woman, someone from another world, conceive a child with him was nothing short of extraordinary, but there was a part of him, a small yet powerful part, that understood the depth of her longing. Despite her otherworldly appearance and origins, Teria wasn't so different from any human woman who dreamed of becoming a mother. He glanced at her, her golden eyes shimmering with an emotion he couldn't fully comprehend. She was vulnerable in that moment, the walls of her alien race's coldness finally crumbling as she reached out for something simple, something human. I didn't expect this, Daniel said softly, looking away as he tried to find the right words. It's a lot to take in. I don't even know where to begin. Teria nodded, her posture slightly slumped as she waited for his response. She had laid herself bare before him, revealing her most intimate desire, and now she could only hope he would understand. The silence between them was heavy, filled with unspoken thoughts and emotions. She had known it wasn't going to be easy. After all, she was an alien to him in every sense of the word. Their worlds were vastly different, and their biology, well, that was an obstacle she hadn't fully anticipated. But she had come to Earth with hope, with the belief that humanity's capacity for love and compassion could transcend even the boundaries of species. What's it like? Daniel finally asked, his voice quiet but genuine. Being a mother, I mean, I don't even know how to wrap my head around what you've just said, but I want to understand. Tara's heart swelled at his words. She hadn't expected him to jump at her request, but his curiosity and willingness to understand gave her hope. She inhaled deeply, her voice trembling as she spoke. It's different for my people, she began, her tone almost wistful. We don't have families the way humans do. We don't experience love or affection the way you do. We're raised in a system of duty, of service, where emotions are suppressed. The idea of love, of a mother holding her child, is foreign to us. Daniel sat up straighter, his attention fixed on her. He could sense the pain in her words. It was clear that Teria had never known what it was like to have a family, a mother, a father, someone who cared for you unconditionally. But when I saw you, Daniel, Teria continued, her voice growing softer, I saw something in you that I couldn't explain, a warmth, a kindness that I've never known. I want to experience that, to feel love, to give love. I believe that with you I could. The rawness of her confession made Daniel's chest tighten. He didn't know if he was ready for what she was asking. Could he truly give her what she wanted? Was it even possible for them to create a family together despite the vast differences between their species? He looked at her, really looked at her. Her skin pale and smooth shimmered faintly in the dim light of the park. Her eyes, golden and filled with longing, spoke of a past that had denied her the warmth of human affection. The desperation she felt for a connection, for love, was palpable. It was in her every gesture, every word. Why me? Daniel asked, breaking the silence. Why choose me for this? Tara's gaze softened, her lips parting as she thought carefully before responding. Because you're different. You're kind, and you don't judge. I've seen how you treat people, how you care for the world around you. I've watched you from afar before I gathered the courage to speak to you. You're someone I can trust, someone who won't look at me as an alien or a monster. I believe you can see me for who I truly am. Daniel felt his heart race. Her words struck him deeply. Teria had been watching him. She had been observing him from the shadows, perhaps unsure, perhaps afraid of rejection, and now here she was revealing a vulnerability that most humans would never dare to show. It was in that moment that Daniel realized something profound. The connection they shared, no matter how unlikely, was real. There was no denying it. Something in him responded to her, something that transcended their differences. I don't know if I'm ready for this, Daniel said quietly. I don't know how this could work between us, but I'm willing to try. I'll help you, Teria. I'll try to understand what you're asking. Tara's eyes widened, the hope in them flickering as she reached for his hand. Her fingers trembled slightly as they touched his. It Wasn't a romantic gesture, not yet, but it was a connection, a moment of shared understanding. "Thank you," she whispered, "thank you for believing in me, for believing in us." Crossing boundaries. Over the following days, Daniel found himself lost in a whirlwind of emotions. The weight of Tara's request hadn't fully settled until he found himself alone, sitting on the edge of his bed, contemplating her words. What was he really saying yes to? Could he truly give her the love she sought? Could their two worlds, so drastically different in every way, ever truly merge? Tara had become a constant presence in his life. Her beautiful yet otherworldly features never ceased to fascinate him, but it wasn't just her appearance that drew him. In it was the raw honesty in her eyes, the yearning for something she had never known but was willing to try with him. It was strange. A few days ago, he had been an ordinary man living an ordinary life. Now he was contemplating something far greater than anything he had ever imagined, helping an alien woman become a mother. Was it even possible that Daniel wasn't one to back down from challenges? If there was one thing he had learned in life, it was that the heart often knew more than the mind, and the heart, for reasons he still couldn't entirely explain, had chosen to open itself to Tara. He had visited her home again that morning. Tara had made him tea, her version of it, which was a bitter concoction he had learned to tolerate, even grow fond of. She had been quiet that day, not pressing him for any answers, but still watching him intently with those piercing golden eyes. "You know," Daniel had said, breaking the silence, "I don't know how this is supposed to work, but I want to try. I want to see what happens between us, if it's possible." Tara had smiled, the expression soft but full of hope. Her gaze softened as she took a step toward him. The closeness between them, though not yet romantic, was charged with something more powerful, an unspoken understanding. As they spoke, their bond grew stronger. The more Daniel listened to Tara's experiences, the more he understood the depth of her pain. She had been raised in a culture that valued strength and duty, where emotions were a weakness and affection was seen as a luxury, something that only the privileged few could experience. But Tara wasn't just any alien. She was a woman with dreams, desires, and the capacity to love. She had been starved of those things for most of her life, and now, standing before him, she was finally able to acknowledge them. "What does being a mother mean to you?" Daniel had asked her one night as they sat on the balcony gazing out at the stars. Tara's eyes shone with something almost indescribable, as though she were peering into a distant dream. "It means warmth," she replied, her voice soft but firm. "It means protection. It means nurturing for my people. We were never given a chance to feel love, to feel needed, but here with you I see a chance to experience that, to give that love. It's something I've always wanted, to be cared for and to care for someone else." Daniel's heart twisted at her words. He understood now the desperation, the desire, the need for connection. He realized that in many ways, Tara's request wasn't just about having a child. It was about finding something she had been denied her whole life: true affection, the kind of love that was unconditional and deep. "I can't promise that I have all the answers," Daniel said, taking her hand gently in his, "but I can promise that I'll try. I'll try to understand what you need, and I'll do everything I can to help you." Tara smiled then, her eyes shining with unshed tears. She had never known someone could offer her so much kindness. She had come to Earth hoping for a chance at motherhood, but what she had found was so much more. She had found someone who saw her not as an alien, not as a cold, emotionless creature, but as a person, as a woman with desires and dreams. In the days that followed, they began to discuss their future. There were still many obstacles ahead: Tara's biology, her alien origins, the social implications of their union. All of these were challenges they would have to face. But one thing was certain: they were no longer strangers. The bond they had forged was stronger than either of them had anticipated. It was the kind of bond that transcended everything: species, culture, background. It was the kind of bond that spoke to the very heart of who they were and what they could become together. Anew beginning. As the days turned into weeks, Daniel and Tara's relationship deepened. They had started to move beyond the initial questions of what was possible, and had begun to take real steps toward the future. However, with each step they took, the reality of the situation started to settle, and Tara's request to have a child with him had not only stirred something deep inside him, but had also raised a series of questions they both had to confront. How would their union be viewed by others? What about the practicalities of Tara's alien biology? Could it even be possible for them to create life together? Given their vastly different genetics, Tara had spent a great deal of time researching the biology of Earth, of humans, and what her own species was capable of. She had found that there were a few documented cases of interspecies reproduction, but they were rare, often involving species with more similar genetics. She had shared her findings with Daniel, and together they had consulted with experts, human scientists, who were fascinated, though also somewhat skeptical, about the possibility of alien-human reproduction. No one had definitive answers, but they agreed to try cautiously. Daniel, for all his doubts, had come to admire Tara's resilience. She wasn't just seeking a child, she was seeking the warmth and acceptance she had never known, something that could only be found in the embrace of a family. One evening, as they sat together on the couch in Tara's apartment, she spoke softly, breaking the comfortable silence between them. "You know, I never imagined I would be here," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I never thought I would find someone who could offer me the love I've always needed." Daniel turned to her, his heart swelling at her words. "I didn't know what to expect either, but I do know that I want to try this, whatever this is, to see where it leads." Tara smiled, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Thank you," she whispered. "I never thought I would have a chance to experience this, to feel what it's like to be wanted, to be loved, and to be needed." The weight of her gratitude wasn't lost on Daniel. He had grown to care for her deeply, and he wanted to help her in whatever way he could. Her pain, her vulnerability, and her hope had become intertwined with his own, and now they shared a purpose, something that neither of them had before. But life wasn't going to be simple. There would be more challenges ahead, and they both knew it. Tara's alien heritage would always be a factor. She was constantly reminded of her differences, of how she wasn't quite like everyone else. On top of that, there were the societal expectations and judgments they would face, the whispers, the stares, the judgment. They both had to prepare themselves for it. One evening, as they sat in a park, a couple approached them. The woman eyed Tara curiously, but it wasn't the kind of curiosity that invited a meaningful conversation. It was more of a silent judgment, as if her presence was a strange anomaly. "Excuse me," the woman said, her tone polite but filled with an undertone of curiosity. "Are you an alien?" Tara's back stiffened, her mind racing. She had dealt with similar questions before, but this time it was different. This time Daniel was by her side, offering her the reassurance she had never had before. Daniel placed a hand on Tara's arm, his voice calm yet firm. "Yes, she is, and she's my partner." The woman blinked, clearly surprised by his directness. "Oh," she muttered, clearly unsure how to respond. "I didn't mean any offense. It's just, well, it's not something you see every day." Daniel nodded. "I understand, but just so you know, Tara is a person just like you and me. She deserves respect, and so does our relationship." The woman seemed taken aback by his response, but she quickly turned and walked away, muttering something under her breath. The moment had passed, but the weight of it lingered. Tara looked at Daniel, her expression unreadable. She had expected that reaction, but the reality of it still stung. "I'm sorry you had to hear that," Daniel said, his voice filled with sincerity, "but don't let it bother you. They don't know what we share. They don't know our story." Tara smiled softly, grateful for his support. "It's okay. I'm learning to handle it. With you by my side, I can face anything." It was a small victory, but it was a victory. Nonetheless, Tara was beginning to understand that with Daniel's love and support, she could navigate the challenges of being with a human in a world that didn't fully understand her. As their relationship grew, so did the challenges they faced, but with each passing day they learned more about each other and about the depth of their bond. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: they would face it together. A future together. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months, and with each passing moment, Teria and Daniel grew more certain of their future, together despite the ever-present judgment of society. They were more connected than ever. They had become a unit, a family built not by blood, but by love, trust, and shared dreams. Their relationship had never been easy, but they had learned to navigate the complications of being from two vastly different worlds, from the harsh realities of their society's opinions to the uncertainty surrounding Terra's biology. They had faced it all, and yet they had always found a way to hold each other up. One evening, as the sun began to set over the horizon, Terra and Daniel stood on the balcony of their apartment. Holding hands, the air was warm, and the city below them hunged with life. But in that moment it was just the two of them. Together. I never thought it would be like this, Teria said, her voice barely a whisper. I never thought I would be here, with someone who sees me for who I am, not just as an alien or an outsider. Daniel squeezed her hand gently. I see you for who you are, he said softly. You're not just an alien, you're a woman who deserves love and respect just like anyone else. Teria turned her face toward him, her eyes glistening with emotion. Thank you for not giving up on me, she said, her voice thick with gratitude. Thank you for showing me what love really is. Daniel smiled, his heart swelling with love for her. I never could give up on you. You're everything I've ever wanted. Their kiss was soft and tender, a promise of all the tomorrows they would face together. But even as they shared this quiet moment, they both knew the journey was far from over. Teria had her doubts. She had always been an outsider, always viewed as different, never truly accepted. But now, with Daniel by her side, she felt more than just accepted. She felt loved, cherished, and safe. The world outside their little bubble may never understand them, but together they had created their own space, a space where their love was enough to conquer all their plans. To have a family were still on the table, still a dream they both shared. They knew there would be challenges, but for the first time Teria felt hopeful. She had never dared to dream of such a life before, but now with Daniel everything seemed possible. I want to start our family, Teria whispered one night, her eyes full of determination. Daniel looked at her, his heart full of love. We'll make it happen together. The future was uncertain, yes. There would be obstacles to overcome, prejudices to face, and more judgments to endure. But they were ready. They had come this far, and they weren't going to stop now. No longer did Teria feel like the alien woman, the outsider with Daniel. She was just a woman who had found love, acceptance, and a future filled with hope. She had found her place in the world, and nothing could take that away. As they lay side by side that night, Teria thought about everything she had been through, everything she had endured. She had been called ugly, unwanted, and discarded. She had been left behind, abandoned to face a harsh, unfeeling world. But she had survived, and now she had found the one person who saw her, truly saw her for the woman she was. Together they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, united by a love that transcended worlds. The future was theirs to build. Thank you for joining Teria and Daniel on their incredible journey of love, acceptance, and the courage to be true to oneself. If you enjoyed this heartfelt story of hope and determination, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more tales of resilience and human spirit. Stay tuned for more adventures, and remember, no matter the obstacles, love always finds a way for